Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to like it, follow it, tell all your friends about it, give it a big fat review. Also, be sure to check out Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for regular updates about upcoming guests. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee. Stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's in Big Y on Memorial Drive, or stop by MetroJeep.com and make it Metro. And then drive home in your new Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
So here's something you probably didn't know. Bands are typically made up of people, living, breathing, free-thinking people. Not always at the same time, but generally, that's an essential ingredient in every band and every artist at every level. Because of this common denominator, people often have outside interests, not because they can't stand the people they're with, but because sometimes you got to stay busy when everybody else is busy being distracted by their own outside interests. Now, these outside distractions can present themselves in all kinds of ways, like reading a book or writing a book, or just spending time with something known as your family. In music, however, there's this thing known as a side project. A side project is an occasional outside musical pursuit that allows you to express things that you might be unable to express or do when you're in that other band. Sometimes these side projects are temporary, sometimes they're not. Either way, they can be valuable to an artist on a number of different levels, and that's why they do them. For example, I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the multi-platinum selling, Grammy Award-winning Tenacious D. This is a band that was founded by comedian Jack Black and his longtime partner Kyle Gass 36 years ago, and they've released 4 albums since 2001. And what started off as a largely acoustic comedic duo, Tenacious D has become a full-time touring band. Full-time, but not without significant breaks in between. Sometimes it's to accommodate Jack Black's acting schedule, and sometimes it's for other reasons. Either way, a dude's got to keep busy, and the guys in Tenacious D certainly have. Kyle Gass, for example, formed the band Trainwreck in 2002, a band that included some outstanding musicians, including bass player John Spiker, John Konesky on guitar, and actor J.R. Reed on vocals. This is a project that released one album, The Reckoning, in 2010, and eventually led to both Konesky and Spiker becoming full-time touring members of Tenacious D. That was until they became full-time members of the band. But that's hardly been the only side project to come out of the Tenacious D family lineage. The latest project is called Missoula. This is a band that includes John Spiker and John Konesky, but also drummer Brooks Wackerman, who's played with Avenge Sevenfold and Bad Religion. Their first album comes out on June 28th, entitled Death Doula, an album of instrumentals that frankly is phenomenal. It's a really strong album that shows that these are not just Jack and Kyle's backup band. These guys are top-level musicians who aren't merely showing off with exceptional chops. They're also making great music together. Whether it's a side project or something that's more permanent remains to be seen, but it sure has come out of the gates with a great start. To talk about the new record, the status of Tenacious D, and about his own amazing story is my guest today, guitarist John Konesky, on Baxie's Musical Podcast. Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for checking in. Even a minute early. Wow, that's pretty good. I appreciate
Very
that.
punctual.
Yes, you are. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been listening to the new record over the last couple of days, Death Doula, which, by the way, I think is a great title. I mean, I think, these birthing doulas get to have all the fun. It's kind of nice to see the people on the other side get a chance, little love for a chance. But secondly, as I'm listening to the record, I'm thinking, man, the last thing these guys need is like a lead singer to get in the way of stuff. Just a really cool record. Congratulations on it.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. We had a really good time making it.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of a timeline here. I mean, how did this whole thing start? I mean, did this start with you and Brooks Wackerman, or was this like a trio from the beginning?
No, it's Brooks and I. It started with Brooks having these sort of starts of ideas. I think that maybe he wasn't quite sure what to do with, and was, I think from the beginning was maybe going to be an instrumental record. And he just threw a couple things to me to just try stuff on. And we made the whole record in our respective homes separately, never once being in the room together. And it was a full, like, let's just do whatever we want to do.
It's actually interesting to hear you say that you did it separately, because the way it sounds like you guys were all together. Sometimes you can hear when a band is, sending in tracks and they're, putting it all together on Pro Tools or whatever it may be, but it really does sound like you're all there live. It's pretty impressive the way it sounds as opposed to how you're describing
it. Cool. Well, that's mission accomplished, I guess.
So at what point does John Spiker get involved in this?
So we actually have our first rehearsal with him tomorrow. We've not even got in the room together yet for our show. So he mixed a couple of the songs on the record, but he's a fairly recent addition. And yeah, we really want to like try to put together a live show, and we realized we need someone to cover key parts or bass. Sometimes you need that.
So I mean, we'll talk about your relationship with John Spiker in a little bit, but how did you get to know Brooks Wackerman? How did that start?
Well, Spiker and I moved to California together from Ohio in 2003, and around 06, well, we started working on Pick a Destiny together in about 2005. And then 06, that tour launched. Brooks was the drummer. So we met him together then. So it was John and I's very first, like, we went from playing small bars to playing arenas in about a split second, backing up Tenacious D. And Brooks was the drummer, and we all just hit it off right away. It's just like three kind of weirdos.
Well, it is amazing to listen to, because I mean, you guys just sound so. I mean, you and John have been playing together for forever, and the drumming from Brooks is really outstanding. But it's complicated stuff. I mean, how long did it take you guys to start putting this all together? I mean, the compositionally, was it like a long period of time, or did it come relatively quickly?
It did take us a very long time, but a lot of that was just more trying to find time in our schedules at that. Mainly Brooks. Brooks is really busy. I'm significantly less busy, but I was also like coming out of my like pandemic alcoholism too, that like a lot of people got to like went a little hard. So I was kind of lazy also in the beginning. And then I was like, all right, I listened back to some stuff that we worked on in the early kind of parts of this. And I was like, oh my God, we're actually making something really cool. I hadn't even like thought about it when I was doing it. I was just like having fun. And at that point I was like, all right, I'm going to I'm just going to kind of sober up and like get into this. And then it went a little faster. And then I was kind of, I'd sit around all day and just tinker with 10 different guitar tracks. And I'd send them to Brooks, and he, now let's go this, or let's go here, or add this, or whatever.
There's a couple of songs that I really, really loved. I love the opening track, Crimson. I thought that was a great way to start things off. But I also really like Delay, and Ted Dollop was the other early single. The only problem I have with that song is it's only 2 minutes. And I was listening to it the other day, and for whatever reason, I accidentally had it on repeat. And it went on for like 6 minutes. I go, wow, this is a really cool song for 6 minutes. And I realized, oh shit, it's only 2 minutes. And I felt like I gave it, like I should have been listening to the rest of the record instead. But I mean, it all sounds, really, really great. And like I said, I'm very surprised to hear that you haven't all physically been together. Obviously, over the last couple of years, since the pandemic, that is how people have been making music, separately and everything. Did you find it to be easier now as opposed to, say, 5-6 years ago when people were just starting it? Has it gotten easier to do it this way?
I think so. I guess so. I mean, not a whole lot has changed in the way that we share, files back and forth or whatever. But the pandemic did kind of force me to build a setup where I could record like end game electric guitars, which I hadn't had up until that point. I would always it was demos, or I go to a studio or something. So that helped. It just sort of forced me to build up my own setup.
And once you did that, I imagine, because I remember listening to records that were coming out in 2001, and some of them sounding, from significant artists that I would talk to, and I would say, "Wow, these sounds really good," but it did sound a little slapped together. And I'm just wondering if the amount of time we're talking about here, because it's been 6 years, whether that has just smoothed over the process where we're no longer in the learning stage. We're now in the, we can do this kind of DIY style and make it sound like we've been together the entire time.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, the technology definitely has come a long way. There's a lot of stuff like in the box that sounds really, really good now. And I think, yeah, you're right to assume that over the last probably 5 or 6 years or whatever, that technology has excelled. Same with which I don't use this, but direct guitar recording setups have gotten really believable. I think those were the things that used to be like the dead giveaway. A lot of those sounded like total crap, but yeah, like I said, I don't use them, but I've heard them before. And like, this sounds amazing.
I mean, obviously people are going to know you primarily from your work with Tenacious D, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I do want to talk about you and John Spiker. I mean, you guys have been playing together for years. You've known each other. I think, you around high school time, you went to different schools, but and you both grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Tell me about the connection of playing with a guy like John, and for playing with him for as long as you have. Tell me a little bit about the dynamic between the two of you guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, John and I, we hit it off immediately as like the biggest music nerds in our respective schools or whatever. We had a mutual friend who introduced us, and we were able to kind of speak the same language that, my close friends and his close friends couldn't really speak. And not in a pretentious way, but just like the type of stuff that we had listened to, and the jazz fusion records and the nerd stuff that we were into, and we could have those conversations. But then John and I also had a pop, kind of more pop band together in those days too. And we were just like very fast friends. And we've stayed friends ever since, and you take this huge risk together. You have $0 and I don't know, if you can even do it that way anymore. I mean, we would have run out of money driving out here in 5 minutes if we did it nowadays. But back then you could go, yeah, it was like, we have literally $0 or whatever. And it's like, we made it to LA, and we had known Kyle through a mutual friend, and just cold called him, we're in town, and he miraculously didn't just blow us off. And we sort of had this trajectory together where we did the same stuff, where it's the weirdest thing. You get the great job, but with your best friend, and it's suddenly so much more fun. And then usually if you're working a normal job with your friend, you get in trouble and they separate you. But, ours was we played with Kyle and Trainwreck for a few years, and that was our training grounds. We did Tenacious D from there.
Well, I'll ask you more about that in a second, though. But when you're playing with a guy for 27 years, which the two of you have, and you've built up this chemistry. When you're playing with new people, do other musicians find it hard to kind of navigate through this pre-existing chemistry, or does that not become the case?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of an example of where that may have happened, where we've played a gig together with new people, because we haven't done a lot of gigs together outside of our main ones, which was Trainwreck into Tenacious D, and some other kind of random stuff around that time. But yeah, I don't know if it's, I wouldn't know. I'd be curious to know from someone else's perspective, but
because I could see where a chemistry like that could be pretty intimidating to crack. If you're just playing with somebody new for the first time, and you're just trying to figure out your own place. But especially with guys who've been playing together for a long time. I mean, even as you're joining Tenacious D, you're playing with Jack and Kyle. their chemistry is already built. Now now they're kind of working with your chemistry too.
Mm.
I mean, to meld that together is not always. I can't imagine that's always the easiest thing to do or to be successful at. But I mean, obviously you have. But I think in a lot of cases that might be kind of hard to meld.
I think it is, but in the case of Tenacious D, John and I were so green too, that we just kept our mouths shut and did everything we could not to screw it up. And so, I think if anything, our chemistry at that time was more just something that made things easier because
Yeah.
we could sort of shorthand communicate to each other, and whatever needed to be done or whatever the guys needed or asked for, we could help, facilitate very quickly and easily.
You talked a little bit about the quick trajectory of all of this. Meeting Kyle, getting introduced by a mutual friend. Obviously, you know where this guy's come from. You know what his pedigree is here. But again, you're moving really fast. You're in Los Angeles, which is about the far away from the universe from Columbus, Ohio, as anywhere else, all apart from New York. To go from Columbus to this, and then all of a sudden you're allied with a guy like Kyle Gass. I mean, your head must have been spinning through a lot of all this, even just through Trainwreck alone.
It was wild. I mean, it was also like I was so naive, and it was tough not to like. I didn't really know. I didn't know what it was. I kind of thought like, well, this is it. I've made it. It's only a matter of time before the money starts flowing in. Like it was like there was a lot of that naivety that was like, it kind of, when you have I didn't come up in any kind of universe with any parents in any field of arts or any entertainment business, nothing. I never saw any of it or how it worked. So it was more a matter of just like, how I have to figure this out. And I didn't for a long time. And it was, it was like, there's no rule book or whatever. But,
so what was the hardest thing for you to embrace? What was the hardest part about it?
Just to realize that the struggle was never going to stop. That there was never, I think for some people they get the like, here's a huge advance, or and now your financial problems are solved or whatever. Everything that I ever did was like a gig, and right. and also a gig with people who worked about 6 to 8 weeks out of the year. Yeah, it was hard. Like the time in between was vast, where it was like, oh crap, I'm out of money, whatever. Like, it's like not easy.
So you get introduced to him. Does he? And you talk about cold calling him.
Yeah, it was a little bit more than a cold call. We had played some shows. Kyle came to Columbus with Jason Reed, who was Lee. If you're familiar with Tenacious D lore, he was Lee in the Tenacious D episodes. They had started Trainwreck. Kyle's idea was to come to Columbus. I think a lot of it was just to kind of visit this mutual friend of ours who introduced us and everything, but play some shows. And he wanted to do the Chuck Berry model, which was hire the band in the city or whatever. And that was us. So we played shows with him, like 2 or 3 shows with him. I think it was like 3 or 4 months later, John and I packed up and left, went to LA. That's when we called him. And that call was more like, we knew he'd remember us because we played together already. Right. I think he was excited that we took the leap because he wanted to play more shows with Trainwreck, and now we were here, and it made it really easy. And I think the fact that we did that might even be the reason why Trainwreck even went on to exist in more of a touring and capacity or whatever.
So when you start playing with him in Trainwreck, did you at any point, was there any discussion about, hey, playing with Tenacious D would be pretty cool? Was it ever even a thought that you would be asked to join or included in that? Or was this just, you're in Trainwreck and that's where this is going to go?
Up to that point, I had never seen Tenacious D perform with a band. So we never assumed that Tenacious D would go on to always play with a band, or almost always play with a band. Yeah, it was never a thing. And I think that worked to our advantage too. We didn't go in expecting like that we were owed some sort of thing, a gig or whatever. I think we sort of assumed like Trainwreck might have gotten bigger or something, and we'd have our own sort of thing with Kyle or whatever. That didn't really happen, but for all we knew, that was the road we were on.
Well, I mean, you released the one record in 2010, and obviously it is a huge break for you guys. But at what point do these conversations about Tenacious D begin? And how did that happen?
Yeah, it was shocking. We knew that, like, we had seen the script for Pick a Destiny, just as like at this point now, Kyle's our friend and gives it to us to read. We knew we would love that, which we did. At that point, I can't remember what year it was, but that conversation, it was one day, one conversation, like, hey, do you guys want to play on this record? And we were just like, that was it. That was the moment where it was like, okay. And it took 2 years or something, because it takes that amount of time to get a movie made. And, and then they had to also write, these guys they aren't fast, like with the way that they like make music. So like, this, they were sort of forced to move a little quicker, but yeah, it was a period of a couple of years where it sort of ramped up. But that was it. It was a phone call. You guys want to do this? And it was, yes, please.
you didn't string them along for a while. Say, yeah, maybe I need to think about this. All right, got to ask my mom or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You'll have to talk to my agent.
I was listening to another interview you had done, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is you talked about being a little starstruck when it came to playing with Jack. Tell me a little bit about that, and how do you get beyond that? I mean, I know it took you some time before, Jack's just another guy to you, as opposed to, holy shit, that's Jack Black, in the same room with me, and I'm playing in a band with him. How do you get beyond that?
Well, you just, spend time in a bus with anybody, a tour bus or whatever with anybody, and it happens pretty quickly. Especially if there's some drinks involved. But I was the same way with Kyle too, but it happened a lot quicker with Kyle because we toured more than Tenacious D ever did. And, it was Kyle and I and Spiker and a couple guys in an RV. So it was a little bit more just kind of grounded in this kind of family road trip energy. So that went a little quicker. But yeah, Jack was still this sort of stratospheric being that I had to kind of get to know. And again, that was another thing where like I didn't know how any of that worked. I'd never met anybody remotely famous before.
Right.
And I've kind of have weird social anxiety anyway. So it was like it was probably like 5 years before I could just like shoot the shit with Jack.
Really? It took that long?
It took me a while, but I didn't see him very often in the early days,
Well, one of the difficulties, I would think, being in a band with a guy like that is you're really, never mind the fame part of it, but just trying to work around the schedules that, you're talking about here. Between his acting schedule and, other projects that you're all doing, how complex does that get to be in a band in that situation, and then to try to accommodate what else he does apart from Tenacious D?
Well, from my perspective, I was always just waiting for their management or somebody in management to say, hey, are you available in this window? And at that point, I knew they had already cleared all that other stuff because I'm kind of down the totem pole or whatever. But like, thankfully, I was like right where I want to be. I don't want to be involved in trying to like manage schedules with any of those people. It was complicated, and we did not tour very often for a large stretch of time. Between Jack's movie schedule and in the earlier days, even Brooks's Bad Religion touring schedule was really intense. And they weren't interested in using anyone else. Like this wasn't a gig where you had a sub. It just wasn't that kind of gig. So, we'd end up doing a few weeks of shows, and then it's like, well, they're talking about doing this, and then we can't because this person's not available, or Jack's doing a movie or whatever. So it was, I imagine, very complicated for the people who get paid to deal with that.
I would imagine so. But I would also imagine, because you are kind of, beholden to so many different scheduling situations and conflicts that, to actually do a side project from time to time is probably good on a psychological level. Even forget about financial, but just
Right.
just to stay busy and engaged. I imagine you kind of need that. You kind of, that's almost like a really important thing to have, not to fall back on, but at least to keep your feet wet in all of it.
That's absolutely. And that's like, I love touring. I always have. I've toured in very, just in uncomfortable ways and comfortable ways. And I've toured in vans and RVs and whatever else, and tour buses. And that's one reason I think Kyle and I have managed to kind of, we always sort of have something that we're working on together, because Kyle loves that too. And it isn't so much about money. It really isn't. I mean, we just want to go out and play. And I personally love doing every aspect of it. I like the challenge of like building tours and like DIYing and like doing everything and tour managing myself and stuff. So that's something that, I need that. Like, some people like to travel, and it's like, I like to travel, but I want to I want to travel for work.
So to be in a situation like this, because I mean, there is certainly a comedic element to Tenacious D, and you're dealing with world-class talent, not just musically, but comedically too. On the surface, it sounds like it's got to be a hell of a lot of fun, but it is a lot of work to do what you guys do, and to do it to the level that you do it. I mean, the quality of the band when it's playing together is outstanding. I think that's one of the things that people appreciate. Not just the fact that you can have a great time and laugh at what you guys are doing, but it's so well done that I think some people are maybe surprised by how well it's done. I don't know if you still feel that way, or if Tenacious D has gotten to the point where that's not the surprise of it. Isn't really the surprise. It's just what else hilarious is these guys going to do?
Yeah, well, it's gotten to a place where it's really fun now, because there's not so much like we sort of know what we're doing, to the point that we can just have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, that's one thing that I've always loved about Tenacious D is Jack's also happens to be one of the great rock singers of our time.
Right.
And I mean, it's a weird, like, it's crazy to say that, but it's true. He's like an incredible vocal talent, in addition to being one of the funniest human beings on the planet. So to have that, and then his the way that him and Kyle work together and write together, and the stuff that they come up with, and Kyle's sense of humor and his strengths as a straight man in their context, and just the way that they are connected comedically, they've always been able. And that, listen back to that first Tenacious D record, and it's a brilliant album, and it's a great. If none of it was funny, it would still be great to listen to. And I think it makes it easy to be a good band when that's what you have to work with. You kind of have to be an idiot to screw it up.
And that's never happened in rock music ever, where a good thing was ruined because someone decided to screw it up. That's never happened.
Right.
But you guys are also in on the comedy part of the show and the music as well. So I mean, there's got to be a certain level of comedic timing and understanding that you and John have in this too. Did you find that to come natural to you guys to be able to kind of fit into that pocket with the other two?
Well, we knew we were big Tenacious D fans, so we knew the lore, we knew their language and the way that they just their sense of humor. We were aligned with it to some degree just by being fans. So I think that made it really easy for us to just sit in. And again, like in the beginning, we just kind of kept our mouths shut a lot and just were easy, like just be easy.
Right,
That was our
right.
thing.
Um, I mean, I have to ask you about the situation that happened in Australia in 2024, where Kyle said some things and the tour gets canceled. I know things have calmed down and things have smoothed out quite a bit since then. But what can you tell me about that night and the aftermath of it? I mean, how did that go down for you guys?
Like from my perspective,
Sure, yeah,
well, I mean, you know, choose my words carefully. From my perspective, the any of the problems that came from the fallout of the people who chose to be offended by it. That was the part that made it complicated. The fact that all of us in the extended universe of that family were getting death threats from, you know, extremists, essentially, was frightening. And so any decisions that were made internally, I was obviously not involved with. It's way above my pay grade, but I support 100% my bosses, and whatever they decide to do in any case is fine. If they, if ending the tour is a matter of safety or whatever it is, then that's what it is, and it was just an unfortunate incident, and that's, pretty much.
yeah. Well, man, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. I realize you're kind of in a tender spot to talk about a lot of it, but my understanding, like I said, things have calmed down and things have smoothed out a little bit. What is the status of Tenacious D now? I mean, is it still a functioning project? I mean, do you see more work coming down the road, or are they kind of putting the brakes on it for at least a little bit longer?
I honestly wouldn't know. It's again, it's like not something that I'm involved with their day-to-day business until it involves me. So until there's an email that's like, hey, we're doing this, I don't really know. I do know that we all speak, we're all friends.
Yeah.
We're all, I know that. So beyond that, I wish I knew more. I mean, obviously no one wants it to come back full force more than me, because it's great. It's a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but now you're involved in Missoula, and like I said, the record is coming out, fairly soon. I know you've got an album release show that's coming. I think it's on the 30th in Los Angeles. Beyond that, though, beyond the end of the month, are there further plans for Missoula, taking it on the road, or doing more work together?
We'll do as much as we are able to do. I think Brooks has some Avenge stuff coming up, and then I think maybe he frees up towards the end of the year. We're doing our release show at the Big Potato, and then we'll have some time off, and hopefully we'll ramp it up towards the end of the year and into next year. We do want to tour it for sure.
Like I said, John, it's a great record. Death Duel is wicked cool. I think the musicianship is really outstanding. I mean your guitar work is, anyone who's ever listened to it seriously knows that. I mean, you're outstanding, and Brooks sounds amazing. I mean, he's such a good drummer that it's almost all the stuff that he's done with Bad Religion, Avenge Sevenfold, all great. But when you listen to him taking somewhat like a more jazz approach, or like different kinds of musical directions, it's like, wow, this guy's chops are really pretty amazing.
He's incredible.
He's really good.
Exactly. I've played with Brooks a lot through Tenacious D, and we also have a cover band called Rothschild. He's amazing to play with and listen to. He's such for like a high level talent like that. He's also very creative and outside the box in the way that he plays and everything. So it's awesome for me, you know.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, John, this is great. Like I said, I really enjoyed the record. I wish you guys all the best of luck with it because it really is a good listen. It's really outstanding. So thank you so much for spending some time to talk about it today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And if the other guys want to talk, Jack, Kyle, let's just, that would be great. No pressure. Just saying.
Way above my pay grade, but
it doesn't hurt to at least ask. So thank you, John. I appreciate the time today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. See ya.
Bye-bye. The name of the new album from Missoula is called Death Doula. It comes out on June 28th. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can reach me at bax@rock102.com. Love to hear what you think. Thanks to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support, but most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.